Match found.
Let me swim in your motion. Let me get inside your ocean. In slow motion. I don't need to use no lotion. I wanna rest.
Take a seat. I got this.
Why the fuck does it change?
Dinna ken what they're on about, but I can promise them. Radianite will not solve their problems.
Turret out.
Wonderful.
Spike down A.
Watching here.
Here,
Watch out.
90 on race.
Get back.
Orange one.
Enemy down. Reloading. Enemy spotted A.
They're punting.
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
Last one's on site.
Reloading.
Here.
Oh.
Where the fuck did it go? Claim that.
Let them unweave our world. Aye, where to?
Hey, what the fuck is that phone thing? You.
Oh, it's like they added it. You can equip it on like your sprays. You can equip it. It's just like for
On my
clicking.
sprays. What?
Yeah, I have to get out of game, but like you can spray and then you can pull it out.
What?
That's
I need
just
to
the
do that.
face.
Hold on.
I know.
Going up. Careful now. Here.
Anabolic.
Here.
Reloading.
Raise there. Reload. One enemy remaining.
Where's Tejo?
Oh.
Yeah. Where's Tejo?
Hello, Flash.
Found him.
I was
I
at work.
found him. I
You
found him.
Get him, get him. You're so flat right now.
Last player standing.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Okay, Tejo. Okay.
30 seconds left.
Wow.
Their tech is only as good as their skill. And there, we have some beat.
I wasn't talking that whole time because I was trying to figure out how I want my nails done tomorrow.
Oh. What did you decide on?
I haven't decided yet.
Oh, it's been like 40 minutes.
I haven't decided. I know.
Oh, it's been
I haven't
40 minutes.
decided.
Yeah, what do they look like?
I'll show
I'll
you
crush her
all of the ones
radiant
that I
heart.
want to do. Because my nails are begins. They're on their last life.
Oh. I think they might. Oh, I lied. Okay. I lied. I'm just a liar. Oh, I'm not a liar. I'm not a liar. I'm not a liar. Careful behind y'all.
I don't know.
Gun here.
There's a vandal. There's
Last player standing.
The guy has
behind you. Behind you.
Spike planted.
Yeah. Let's take her. Launches rockets at you.
Last round before the switch.
I didn't get such a. I
Spend it now,
know. He's so
or it's
big.
gone.
Is Ghosto still dead?
What's up?
Oh, no, you're here. I said hi, and you, like, died.
Oh, I didn't hear you guys.
Anyone need something?
Also asked, or sorry, Flash asked where you've been.
Well, I was at work, and then
Here.
Hey.
and then I got on Rivals for a little bit, and now I'm on League.
Whoa.
Oh, shit.
Oh, Sage is close.
Oh,
Going up.
hold on, pause. Okay, I'm paused.
Your duty is not over.
Spike planted.
This is crazy.
Where'd she go? What the fuck?
I found Reyna.
Your work and stuff.
That's this weekend, yeah.
And from this weekend it starts at your
Enemy remaining.
free.
Yep.
That's cool.
Fuck you, Tejo.
Like now you just work every weekend, but like replace it. You have these 2 days on another day, or you will just get these 2 days free out.
I was getting for that.
Oh,
Switching
so you have some
sides.
free time.
Oh yeah.
They should probably reevaluate their approach.
No charges left.
Watching here.
I need a drop.
Can someone get this?
Here.
I have singularity.
Nah.
Oh, never mind.
Need a drop.
That was zero ping. Come on. Oh, never
Thank
mind.
you.
Oh, no, you did.
Gun here.
Can someone get this?
Nope.
Here.
I got you, bruv.
Pathetic.
Oh my god.
Spike down A.
Dropping smoke. Right here.
Last player standing. One enemy
fought
remaining.
Their lives are so meaningless. Might as well give them to me.
Reloading.
Break in. No.
Reloading. Cutting their vision.
Oh.
Spike down B.
No, you don't. Going up.
Reloading.
Oh gosh, every time you fucking wall like this, like a low key makes me want to crash out.
No peeking.
Oh, she smoked your flash. That's a funny. Other side, other side. Guys.
Let them try to get through me.
Watch out.
Break them.
Cheers. Come on, let's go.
Hi, Lily. Okay. I thought you were short. It's okay. Look at it.
Going up.
The wall didn't reach. Okay. I'm gonna go push up.
Last player standing.
Man, you're supposed to live.
You should
Rena.
stop trying.
Match
Playing
point.
Valorant. It's all Valorant.
I can
bro.
see why you don't want any of my tech. You're scary enough without it. I must stop their
Reloading. Cutting their vision.
Careful now.
Fire in the hole!
Planet.
Oh, okay. No, I get it.
I shot something.
No charges left. Going up. Watch out. That's done.
Oh, you're dead. I'm sorry. Sorry.
You will not stand by my life.
Oh.
Sudden death.
Don't die. If you need help figuring out how, just ask.
Help. Nah. Nah.
Here.
Let's go.
There.
Oh, don't get. Oh.
Can't use that.
Reloading. Cutting their vision.
Here.
It's on your wall. 120.
Spike down mid. One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Fuck him up, fuck him up. I like this play.
30 seconds left.
It's gonna think you're gonna go A, right? You don't have time.
10 seconds left.
Down. Alarm bot out. Placing sentry. Placing swarm grenade. Found them. Killed my bot.
He knows. Nice.
Attackers
Oh my
win.
god, my cheeks
That
hurt.
was so
For a
quick.
debrief. If anyone? No one?
Wait, show me how to do that phone thing. I can't use it
Okay.
now, but I'm gonna go play RAM.
Yeah. Go to your collection. There's your sprays. Click on your sprays. And there says flex. Go to flex, and then you can fit in.
Oh. What is this snowflake one?
I think it's the battle pass one? Question mark.
Let me see what it is.
You can
I hope
just
they
yeah,
showed
it's
me.
in the battle pass. This is snowflake. They'll probably
That's
add
all?
more later on. Yeah, they'll probably add more later on, but
Well,
thanks for playing.
GG's. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Shut up, Boso.
Oh, have fun.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, after I close this fucking thing that's opened on my screen.
Oh wait, who the fuck left?
Peen did. She's gonna go play area.
Oh,
Yeah.
bet.
I'm gonna go to bed too. Thanks for playing Clash. Bye bye.
Alright, see you.
Bye
Damn.
bye. Damn what?
Everyone's leaving as soon as I get here.
You're
Unfortunate.
literally playing team fight tactics. Like, you'll be okay.
Well,
You'll be okay.
alright.
Good night.
Silver, I don't know if you can hear me, but see you the next time. Have a good one.
Match found.
You have good taste, my friend.
Important shooter of the last 10 years. I'll give you a hint. It features a large cast of colorful characters, saw huge mainstream success upon release. What is the most important shooter of the last 10 years? I'll give you a hint. It features Fortnite. Okay, I'm not really talking about Fortnite, although it's true that Fortnite was and is extremely important. Before that, at the tail end of another era, there was another title that also had a profound impact on the games industry and completely changed the way we think about shooters.
Overwatch.
On PC and console starting May 5th.
It marks the start of stage 1 of the regular season.
Reyna, the offer stands. Take whatever life you need from me. She deserves it. Dropping smoke. Reloading.
Plant the spike. I'm a good shot.
One backstep, low.
Enemy remaining.
It seems these strangers want me dead. Eh bien, they're not so.
Reloading.
Gun here. Thank you. Gun here.
Down A.
Reloading. No peeking.
Spike dropped.
I got the spike.
30 seconds left. One enemy remaining.
They're losing heart.
Reloading.
A gift. That's a good spot. That works. That's a good spot.
It's you and me.
A gift. Spike is down.
Spike down A.
Plant the spike.
उधर ही है दोनों इमरान और क्लो
They don't have a single life worth saving.
Come B, come B.
You lose. My ult is ready.
Nice.
Here.
Yeah, man. Multiple mid. I saw wins.
That's not ready.
One enemy remaining.
Stick together. Stick together.
क्यों दे रहा है बे मतलब ब्लाइंड
You know what we should do?
Need a drop.
They are so dead.
Good.
Too fun. That's a good spot. Here.
Multiple. Just come back.
Player standing.
Left.
It's you and me.
Good for you.
Spike retrieved.
Nice.
Last two was
30 seconds left.
We're good.
That works. That works. That's a good spot.
Spike drop. Spike's here. I got this spike.
Come B.
Here. A gift. Aye.
Enemy remaining.
That's three. Trust me, they will make mistakes. When they do, take advantage.
Need a drop.
That works. That's a good spot. A gift. That works. That's a good spot. A gift. I'll get with you.
Here. Reloading.
Plant, Jet, you have plant.
Spike down A.
I have the spike.
40, I think.
One enemy remaining.
I
About
think
40.
My ult is ready.
40. I also given it.
Last player standing.
It's you and me.
Nice one, bro.
No peeking. Woo! We got this.
Need a drop.
Need a drop. Thank you.
Careful.
Here. They are so dead. That works.
Dropping smokes.
There. Finished. My ult ready.
Enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Nice.
Stay alive. I want their life, not yours.
Spike's here. I wet. Reloading.
ये यहीं पे है। बीजा वो भी।
Enemy remaining. Last player standing.
Neon is
Spike
A
down
on
B.
standing.
That's a good spot.
Thirty
Teleport's
seconds
ready.
left.
There they are. I have the spike.
10 seconds left.
Nice one.
Last round before the switch.
Need a drop.
Need a
Down
drop.
drop. Need a drop.
Thank you.
I don't have option.
Thank you.
2 ऑफ भाई 2 ऑफ है देख के 3 ऑफ है वाह ओ माय गॉड
It's you and me. A gift. They found my trap. That's not ready.
Where did I okay.
Yeah, I didn't do it.
That's not ready.
Spike down A. Player standing. 30 seconds left. Switching sides.
Let us see what they have planned for us this time.
You can watch B.
Here. Here. Gun here.
Bro.
That teleport's ready.
Spike planted.
Fall back. Fall back.
60 Reina.
Fall back.
Nice.
Reina 60.
Teleport's ready.
One enemy remaining.
Reina
Last
मैं भी
player
कहता
standing.
Nice. Nice one. Nice one.
Was that important? Help. Outside of this game, immortality doesn't have as many day-to-day benefits as you think. Could have a drop.
Here. Need backup.
Spike down A.
उसके पीछे डब्बे के पीछे रहना ना बैठा एक मिनट डब्बे के जस्ट साइड गया गया रहना रहना भी होगा
Spike planted. One enemy remaining.
मिड में था ये.
No peeking.
Attack when they're suppressed. That works. Out of charges. That's a good spot. Again. That works. 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 That's a good spot.
दो मिड में दो. 140 है यार, मार दो इसे. 140 मिड में ही.
Spike planted.
ऊपर चेंबर.
Last player standing. You had your fun.
ऑफ से ना रहने.
I will fulfill my purpose.
Need a drop.
Need a drop.
नहीं है.
Need a drop. Here.
ऑप्शन नहीं है मेरे पास.
आउटलो.
Thank you. Roll for initiative.
ए.
I don't think so.
क्या हुआ? ये क्या कर रहा है?
अरे 130 है. 130.
That works.
Spike planted.
I see no.
My ult's ready.
Nice.
Player standing. Enemy remaining.
बैक साइड चला.
Fake.
This is nothing.
Right.
You know, I could just outlive them. Nah, bullets are quicker. Reloading. Need a drop. That's drop. Thank you. Keep up.
B.
It's you and me.
Spike planted.
One back. Arena.
Last player standing.
Oh, this reminds me of this one time where Reloading.
एक सेव कर लो.
Out of charges. That's That's a good spot. Again. That works. That's a good spot. Again.
Mid.
I can't miss.
कार नहीं लगा
You had your fun. My turn.
मैंने कहा गन किसी का
अबे sorry भाई क्या
प्लांटिंग
Spike planted.
कॉर्नर क्यों छोड़ रहे हो स्मोक डिप कर देना हो जाएगा
Dropping smoke.
बैठ जा तू बैठ
One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
नाइफ डाल
पे
अरे
Taking one for the team.
नाइफ डाल मतलब क्या यहीं डाल
Bien joué, KO. You are unstoppable, my friend.
वो देना ऑफ देना
Need a drop.
साइड दे साइड आएंगे बाय लो बाय
अरे 120 तीन
That works.
अरे ऑफ है तो शायद रोटेट कर लिया होगा ना
Teleport's ready.
प्लांट हो रहा है
प्लांटिंग
Spike planted.
मैं ऊपर बैठा हुआ है
ये आइसो साइड पे था इधर
इधर जब एक मार दिया तो 4 बंदे उधर जाके खड़े हो गए इधर पूरा छोड़ के
Reloading.
Spike planted.
Reloading. Blocking sight. No peeking.
point. Need a drop. Thank you.
ऑब्जेक्ट सुन के ऊपर देख रहे थे। एक और लेफ्ट भी जाओ भी जाओ भी जाओ भी जाओ।
Teleport's ready.
Spike planted.
स्लो पुश कर दे तू अकेले, तेरे पे अल्ट है ना।
अबे हट इसकी।
स्मोक और हाफ कर दे फिर पुश कर देना।
स्मोक एंड डिफ।
मारेगा हाफ वापस बैठ जा हाफ कर दे।
One enemy remaining. Last player standing.
हाफ पे
आओ ना।
ऊपर है।
भाई वो बंदा बैठा है उधर, तुमको कुछ नहीं मरना वरना था, सीधा उसको कवर देना था।
Friends of ours are not too friendly. Bonne chance, mes amis.
There.
Go ahead. Stand your ground.
It's you and me.
कुछ कर रहा नहीं।
One enemy remaining. Flawless. Defenders win.
You all did beautifully.
Overwatch is the latest phenomenon in the popular world of esports.
You know, the world could always use more heroes.
Overwatch was a team-based hero shooter released by Blizzard Entertainment in May 2016. It featured 6 players on each team working together to defeat the opposing team by completing objectives. The game launched with a wide and ever-expanding roster of heroes, each of which had their own unique abilities and were divided into 3 classes: tank, damage, and support. It's difficult to fully express how ubiquitous Overwatch was during that first year if you weren't around for it. For a time, it seemed like everyone was playing it, and it wasn't just people who were already fans of the genre. The game had a unifying quality that enticed tons of people who'd never even touched a shooter before to try it out. It won several Game of the Year awards and became a cross-platform hit.
Overwatch.
But now, 8 years after its release, Overwatch isn't quite the cultural behemoth that it was. In fact, Overwatch as we knew it then isn't even around anymore. That's because in 2019, Blizzard announced they were developing Overwatch 2, a sequel that would replace Overwatch entirely and was released 3 years later. The sequel didn't have nearly the same impact as the original. Honestly, most people were pretty underwhelmed by it. Though, to be fair, Overwatch's popularity had already been waning by the time Overwatch 2 began development. The sequel eventually found its groove and now maintains a healthy player base, but is hardly a staple of the genre in the way it was back then. That puts Overwatch at a pretty unique place in video games history. How did it go from the biggest game in the world to just another entry in a lineup of shooters? And if it fell off so hard, why are we still comparing other games to it today? To answer that question, we'll have to go back to where it all came from. Back to the beginning, before Overwatch was even called Overwatch. Before it was even so much as a twinkle in John Blizzard's eye. Around 2007, Blizzard began development on a game codenamed Titan. According to a Kotaku report, Titan was a class-based MMO that took place on a near-future version of Earth, with gameplay that resembled that of the popular shooter Team Fortress 2. Remember that name, it'll come back later. But after 7 years of development, Blizzard announced in 2014 that they were canceling Titan. According to CEO Mike Morhaime, the team couldn't find the fun, and eventually had to make the tough call to drop the game. Even though Titan was canceled, a core group of its development team stayed on at Blizzard in hopes of creating something new out of the remains. And what they came up with was... Overwatch's announcement and gameplay reveal was met with comparisons to other games in the space. This wasn't a surprise. After all, Overwatch was directly inspired by those titles. Game director Jeff Kaplan was a veteran of the Quake modding community, which influenced Overwatch's fluid movement system. You can still see inspiration from Quake in Overwatch today, like in how certain maps have jump pads.
I'm Shane Rafa Hendrickson. I'm an esports competitor for Team Liquid. I've competed with them for Overwatch, for Quake Champions, for Diabolical, so I'm like kind of like their arena FPS guy. From the Quake community, it was pretty split. Like hardcore people that were like, oh, this is a game that I'll never play. Like it's not like a true, pure like FPS, but for me, I was really excited for it.
Quake was formative for Overwatch when it came to the feel of the game. But at its core, Overwatch was a hero shooter, and there's basically only one place it could have gotten that from.
Who's ready to go find the spy? Headshot.
If you weren't around to play TF2 during its glory days, here's one thing you need to know. It was hard. No, not the game itself. Well, the game itself was hard too, but just getting into the game was hard. Nowadays, when you open up a game and decide to start playing, you generally expect to click a big obvious button and for the client to put you in a normal game with a group of other people who are around your skill level. That's called skill-based matchmaking. But that wasn't the case with TF2. Up until 2016, at least.
What?
For much of its lifespan, TF2 was largely built around community-run servers. In order to play the game, you generally have to troll through a list of servers and find one that you wanted to play on. Valve did add a quick play system that would automatically connect you to a server with your preferred game mode in 2011, but the skill-based part was still lacking, until they also implemented that in 2016. This also meant that there wasn't a true competitive mode, so anyone who wanted to play competitively had to sort of make it up.
I'm Sideshow. I used to be a Overwatch commentator. Before that, I used to, if you can believe it, be a semi-pro TF2 player, as much as anybody ever was that. And now I currently work in Valorant as well. The community kind of drifted from, they were playing a bit of 7v7, realized that was a bit too big and clunky, didn't feel very good, went down to playing some 6v6, tried playing some 5v5, thought that was a bit too small, ended up figuring out that 6v6 felt good for the game, and then started limiting what you could pick based on what was competitively viable because there was no patch updates to try to balance the game. So very much taking a game that was marketed for the casual audience and trying to find what is the best way of playing it competitively, which is in no way how games currently work.
Nowadays, most people can't imagine games without automatic matchmaking. But manually finding servers that you liked was a big part of how TF2 and many other games of that era functioned. That style of game creates a strong sense of community and allows people to play however they want. But it also raises the barrier to entry for new players. Overwatch identified that accessibility issue, took TF2's winning gameplay formula and applied Blizzard's philosophy to it.
It did have that AAA polish that just allowed you to jump in immediately. It just had a quick play setting that you're in and you're playing the same mode that you would see pro players play and good ranked players play and casual players play. You're all in the same bucket. You don't have to go through an entire list of community servers. Things just aren't run like that anymore.
I played for like a week. I was like, I get why this game got hype around it and why people were wanting to play it so much. It had a very satisfying like playstyle loop, and the fact that you could play all sorts of different heroes, you could swap, that it wasn't like locked in.
If you hadn't played very much TF2, it looked like a TF2 clone. And it's quite similar to if you hadn't played a ton of Overwatch, Valorant looks like, oh, they just added Overwatch to CSGO. But the games do not play in a similar way, really, at all. Some of the agent design, some of the hero design, the character stuff, does seem somewhat similar, right? There are very similar mechanics that have been brought over. If you look at small things and you just compare the details. But when it all gets put together, it's an incredibly different game.
So Overwatch was built on the foundation of games like Quake and TF2, as well as all the lessons Blizzard had learned over many years of making games. When it was released, it was met with critical acclaim and overwhelming enthusiasm from the player base. There was nothing like it at the time. But if it owed so much to the games that came before it, why did it feel so different?
Hi, my name is Courtney, also known as Glitcher Glitch City.
I am SK Evelyn Overwatch. I'm a full-time streamer and YouTuber, mostly known for Overwatch.
My name is Aspen, and I've been playing Overwatch since release, basically, for about 8 years. And I've been streaming it for around 7 years.
I started playing 2 days after the game came out in 2016, I think it was.
By start with Overwatch, it was actually my first shooter game ever, and it was also my introduction into esports.
I got the game and I started playing, and I just got hooked so fast.
In order to win in Overwatch, get good teammates.
If it wasn't for Overwatch, I probably would not have been introduced into so many different titles and different games and just different things within gaming.
I really love the game, that's why I've been playing it so long.
It's been my job since 16. So for so long, yeah, it's a huge part of my life. There's no other game I would have rather played for this long than Overwatch. Oh, hoggers.
One major reason for Overwatch's huge success was that it invited many people who had no experience with shooters to try the genre out for the first time, by presenting itself as being welcoming to everyone, regardless of skill level or background. There were damage characters that required mechanical skill and precision, like Genji and Tracer, but alongside them, there were tank and support characters like Winston and Mercy, who were designed in such a way that they didn't require high-level mechanics. Honestly, when just starting out, you barely even needed to know how to move your mouse properly. Instead, you could rely on other factors to have an impact, and learn the game as you went along.
Yeah, when I was playing Mercy, it's really easy to learn how to play the game when you're kind of like spectating. Not to say that Mercy doesn't require skill, she absolutely does, but you can really sit back and watch everything happening, kind of outsider perspective, which is really cool.
The fact that ability usage and game sense were just as important as aim also meant that skills from other games were transferable. People who were new to shooters but knew how to use and combine abilities could seriously challenge seasoned FPS players.
I think a lot of the players who were doing really well were ones that came from WoW because of like the MOBA aspect that came from it, like understanding like that the game really was about combining and using your ultimates correctly.
Like with cooldown management and with all the teamfight stuff, with ult tracking and so on.
Then you had players from like CS and some other games, TF2, where like players who had a bit more of a mechanical edge with like precise aiming with headshots, since headshots mattered in this game, whereas in Quake, there are no headshots. It's just more about overall raw aiming and different aiming styles mixed together, where there's like projectile, hit scan, so like tracking and precision. But there's like more precise aiming in other games, and I felt like they excelled because it really mattered to hit those shots.
The fact that you could feasibly succeed in Overwatch without thousands of hours of aim practice under your belt was a huge draw. When getting into a new genre, one that you've never played before, it can be very daunting to feel like you don't even know the basics. For example, I've been trying on and off to play League of Legends for 10 years, and I basically give up every single time I have to buy an item. But Overwatch's emphasis on teamwork, game sense, and ability usage made it so that new players could still enjoy themselves.
I learned about game sense. I didn't even know that was a thing. Target calling, shot calling, timers and cooldowns and stuff, which I never really thought to pay attention to in any other game besides this game. And that actually translated into the other shooter games that I play today.
Yo, we can totally climb The community that Overwatch built also felt welcoming. It obviously wasn't completely free of toxicity and drama. Those things never go away no matter the game. But it felt more open, thanks to both the feel of the game itself and efforts from the developers. In 2015, Overwatch posted its first developer update. This was a video that featured game director Jeff Kaplan, in which he spoke directly to the players about the current state of the game and future plans for it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the beta. This is Jeff Kaplan. I'm one of the guys from the Overwatch team. We're extremely excited that the beta is finally started.
The team would continue to post developer updates in this fashion all through the beta and post-launch. They were a big hit with the community. When the developers were speaking to you directly and assuring you that they were listening, it made Overwatch seem like kind of a group project, one that all its players were a part of. It was so beloved that Jeff Kaplan became a meme, which is the highest honor any game developer can hope to achieve.
Wrestle with Jeff, prepare for death.
The frequent developer updates really strengthened people's belief in Blizzard's vision for the game. Other game companies quickly noticed how successful this approach was and started to emulate it.
My name's Chris Tom. I'm currently the head of community and communications at Third Craft Games. It's a little indie studio. We're making a game called Supervive. For about 8 years prior to this, I was at Riot. I was the communications lead of League of Legends. I was the communications lead for all of League of Legends esports. And then I was also the head of communications for the launch of Valorant. I was the communications lead, or actually I became a communications lead on League of Legends right when Overwatch launched. One thing that Overwatch, I think, did really well at launch, and that was, I think, the summer of 2016, was Jeff Kaplan's communication style. And so specifically, how it affected me initially was, this is a great game. It was pulling a lot of players, it was making massive waves within the industry. But also, their community and communication style was sort of very modern. Putting Jeff Kaplan on video, he was talking about their whole entire roadmap. And actually, prior to that, Riot did not do that. After Overwatch launched, we all kind of looked at what they were doing, and we were like, hey, actually, this is these are really good pointers for how we can improve our communications pipeline.
Of course, Overwatch's success both in 2016 and beyond wasn't just built on its gameplay and community. There was another factor at play, one that might have been even more important.
Don't worry, loves. Cavalry's here.
My name is Renaud Gerens. I joined Blizzard in 2009. Worked a little bit on a project called Project Titan for a few years, then transferred to Overwatch. I was lucky enough to be part of the Inception team, the core skeleton team who kind of rebooted the project, which later on became Overwatch. And I was the first 3D character artist on the team.
If we compare Overwatch's look with that of all the other successful shooter titles that predated it, it's not hard to see why it stood out. In a world of drab, monotone shooters, its colorful, Pixar-like art style and unique character designs quickly gained a large fan base. People started picking up the game purely out of fascination with the world. In fact, I still remember the exact Tumblr post that made me decide to pick the game up, although I can't find it again, and I've tried.
That was one of the main discussions, to be honest. It was hey, we want to make a game that appeals to everybody. How the heck are we gonna do this? And I think that one thing that was really apparent from the very beginning is that we wanted a really hopeful and bright version of any game that we would make, and in this case it was kind of a bright future. Just stepping away from being super greedy and dark and depressing inside the team. We're okay, I think that this is gonna work a lot better, just globally.
Throughout the game's rollout, Blizzard also released a series of cinematics. Each functioned like a short film, centering on different characters and parts of the world. These cinematics garnered millions of views and catapulted Overwatch further into the mainstream by establishing it as a game with rich lore and world building.
Yeah, cinematic made it so much better for everybody. We're oh my god, I'm so glad you guys are here. Because yeah, they elevated everything. I think without the cinematics, Overwatch wouldn't be what it is right now. I think it allowed Overwatch to go from a good game to a phenomenon.
Of course, Overwatch wasn't the first multiplayer game to invest in its characters. You again? Really? Fine. TF2 also had unique characters whose stories and personalities were expanded on through comics and a series of animated shorts. And the thing is, that stuff was all pretty good. The Meet the Team series is packed full of characterization and humor that mostly still holds up to this day. But they just didn't take off in the same way because they were localized to a specific culture.
In the early 2000s, I'm not saying that this has disappeared entirely, it certainly hasn't, but the internet was a far less open, welcoming place. It was, I think, more male-dominated, more aggressive male-dominated as well, in terms of having more like toxic culture, insulting culture, that kind of thing. And I think what TF2 did incredibly well was take the funnier elements of that edginess. I mean, the sniper's throwing a bottle of piss at you, but it takes the funny side of that edginess and really appeals to the market that was already there. And I think what you see with Overwatch releasing 9 years later, it was pure optimism. If you look at the tone of the games and the IP that they have, it's drastically different. TF2 is slightly edgy humor. The world is a bit more run down. You wouldn't say that it's necessarily a dystopian setting, but it's certainly not optimistic, bright, clean, Numbani, a utopia kind of vibe, which is definitely the world that Overwatch was trying to push in terms of its outlook. And I think that just attracts a completely different subset of people. And I think that a different subset of people were interested in gaming 9 years on.
In many ways, Overwatch released at exactly the right time to meet an audience that wanted to receive it. I mean, this was like 3 world-altering events ago. Things were less cynical back then. For the first time, there was a shooter that felt open to everyone, no matter who they were or where they were from. Overwatch's characters were from all around the world, and there were just as many women as men, things that reflected in its player base. According to a 2017 study by Quantic Foundry, the average percentage of women playing FPSs was 7%. In Overwatch, that percentage was more than doubled at 16%, which is still not a great number, but it's a pretty more than double. Doubled at 16%, which is still not a great number, but it's a pretty notable jump. For many women, Overwatch was their very first shooter, since they'd never been encouraged or enticed to play one before. But Overwatch's inclusive vision of the world and friendliness towards new players invited them to try the game out.
Prior to Overwatch, really, I can't think of many other games that were specifically marketed with a large amount of women in the cast, focusing on stuff that really heavily targeting towards women as an audience. Because the idea that the games industry prior to that was just like, nah, 50% of the population should be fine for us, that'll be fine.
For a long time, the perception had been that women simply weren't interested in shooters, but Overwatch proved that that wasn't the case. Of course, even before Overwatch, there were women who'd been playing shooters for years, but the culture that had built around those games was often quite hostile to them.
I remember my friend, when we were 14, she loved Counter-Strike. And I would go over and watch her play, and she was like, one time she was like, watch this. And she would just go on the mic and be like, how's everyone doing? And just everyone was like, shut the up. This is like, get out of my Counter-Strike. And I'm not saying it's like, it's different, in Valorant. I think gaming is still like, has a long way to go in this regard. But I do think that even then, there are always like people who want to get into these games and maybe that feel that they're not welcome in their communities.
Overwatch did do a lot to welcome women into the game, but that didn't necessarily mean it was marketed more to women than to men. Some of its art, especially early on, was a bit male-gazy, and the issue of misogyny in voice chat still persisted, and does to this day. But merely by equally including women in its vision of the world, so like how the world actually is, Overwatch built up a markedly different audience than its competitors. It is important to note, though, that this diversity-focused approach wasn't done out of pure benevolence. Sure, there was probably good intent behind it from the individuals at Blizzard, but the fact is that it was a marketing tactic intended to sell the game, which makes it inherently cynical. Whether it's possible to truly champion diversity in a commercial game is its own topic of discussion. Throughout my conversations with developers from places like Riot and Ubisoft, it seems like balancing genuine efforts at inclusivity with tactical marketing is a constant struggle. It makes sense because there are often people of color, women, and queer people helping to create these characters, but they don't have final say on how the characters get used and for what purpose. But in the end, Overwatch hit its intended goals with that approach. It sold well, which you could argue was the most important thing for Blizzard, and opened the gates of the shooter genre. All kinds of people who'd never played one before would fall in love with the genre through Overwatch. This is perhaps its most lasting legacy. It showed the rest of the games industry that there was a huge appetite for diversity, story-driven marketing, and accessibility in an online game.
Seeing there be a lot of women and just characters from all across the world, I think really unifies other communities and brings more people that probably wouldn't have picked up the game in the first place. So I think it's really, really good that people are being represented from all genders, all races across the world.
I think it's fair to say that the success that Overwatch had in terms of marketing its game and getting massive amounts of interest and the way that people were excited for that optimistic look towards video games, the diversity in the cast, the marketing it to more women specifically as well, rather than just accidentally, that I think had really important knock-on effects for some other games too. I think that kind of stuff, it just does hook people in. It makes sense to open up your marketing to more and more and more people from around the world and from a variety of backgrounds too.
Thought experiment. You're a game developer in 2016. Overwatch is the biggest game in the world. What do? Do you A, accept that there's no point in even making games anymore, surrendering to your Blizzard overlords, or B, just make your own Overwatch? If you picked option B, congratulations. You had the same thought as roughly 100 other game developers. Your reward is that you get to spend 8 years developing a $400 million game that 50 people will play. After 2016, the games industry was hit with a deluge of hero shooters, all trying to catch the wave of Overwatch's success. Pretty much all of them ended up failing. You've probably never even heard of most of them. That makes sense, because we already have an Overwatch, and we don't really need another one. So the way to go is to make a game that plays differently to Overwatch, but still evokes the same feeling. Overwatch marked a real shift in how the rest of the industry thought about games, particularly how they could market them and to whom.
I think it was a really big surprise. You know, maybe you could say it was like a negative surprise in some way, because I think Riot for a long time was like, we're the only ones doing this. And then Overwatch and Blizzard came out and they started doing this. But I think it really lit a fire under a lot of people. They were like, oh, this is cool. Now we have like a foil to bounce off of, to see what they're doing and how we can continue to push that forward too.
You can really see how Overwatch acted as a foil to some of the big games that came after 2016, like Apex Legends and Valorant, two of the most popular shooters in the world right now. Both games boast diverse characters, two of the most to some of the big games that came after 2016. You can really see how Overwatch acted as a foil to some of the big games that came after 2016, like Apex Legends and Valorant, two of the most popular shooters in the world right now. Both games boast diverse characters, colorful maps, and beginner-friendly gameplay, things that have brought in a substantial number of players who are new to shooters. Sounds pretty familiar, right? Just like Overwatch, both Apex Legends and Valorant were built on formulas that had already proven successful, the Battle Royale and the tactical shooter respectively. And like Overwatch, by prioritizing approachability, they invited a much wider audience to enjoy those genres as well.
When we were talking about Valorant, we were like, we want to make this a game that is the deep joy and the tactical gameplay of tactical shooters to the broader world take down those barriers and those gates, but still have it be highly credible to this audience. What I really give them credit for is they expose the joy of shooting gameplay to a lot of people in such a wide breadth of like mechanical inputs, because once again, all of their characters play so uniquely.
Gameplay-wise, Valorant very clearly owes a lot to Counter-Strike. Despite the fact that its character designs and abilities present superficial similarities to Overwatch, you never seriously say that Valorant is anything but a tactical shooter. But when it comes to how Overwatch's impact can be felt in Valorant, the gameplay is the wrong point of comparison. Valorant may not play anything like Overwatch, but it does occupy the same space in the tac shooter genre that Overwatch once occupied in the hero shooter and the FPS at large. It's an entry point. More than that, it's deliberately designed to be an entry point.
When you jump into a game of CSGO, it's a phenomenal game, don't get me wrong. But if you don't have a lot of experience and hours in the game, you don't know how much to buy on an eco round so that you can still have money in the next. You've got to know exactly how much you earn based on your loss bonus of how many rounds you've already lost in order to calculate that. Like you're doing quick math on the fly, like with a calculator. So Valorant took a lot of the big picture concepts of Overwatch, of make a game easy to get into, make it so that you can have impact on day one of playing rather than having to study the game like you're practicing for a test before you can even jump into a competitive game.
There are a lot of people who played Overwatch as their first ever shooter and have since moved on to other games in the genre. The same will probably happen with the current Valorant and Apex players. As new shooters come out, people will begin to migrate and maybe end up preferring other kinds of games to the one they started out with. That's a valuable experience in itself. You learn something new about yourself that you'd never have known if you hadn't picked that first game up. It's impossible to say whether the audience for shooters would look the same today if Overwatch had never come out. But we can say that it helped to significantly broaden the idea of who could play a shooter and who could get excited about playing a shooter.
I definitely didn't expect myself to want to go pro in gaming at all. I kind of just always use it as like for fun, like entertainment. But with Overwatch, I just became so obsessed with it. It's all I could think of. And I really like cared about my rank a lot. In school, I remember like in math class, I'd be trying to calculate like how much games I would have to win to hit a certain rank. Oh my gosh!
Looking at Overwatch, they're just like an incredible roster of character. I think that they really nailed their character designs and brought in just like a ton of people who attached to those characters. And I think we could do the same thing with Valorant, and we were like, we have so much more room to play with now. They brought in this whole entire space. There's a lot more people playing shooters. They're getting a lot more comfortable with team play and using their mics and things like that, and actually like getting really, really engaged in this depth.
We're in a bit of a shooter renaissance at the moment, with games like Marvel Rivals and Deadlock hitting the scene recently. Marvel Rivals in particular has been accused of copying Overwatch, which is sort of inevitable for any 6v6 hero shooter with a focus on abilities and movement. Although, yeah, there's definitely a lot of inspiration going on here. But, well, some people still say Overwatch copied TF2 or Valorant copied Counter-Strike. The more accurate version is that every game is built on games that came before it. It's not a bad thing to lift things that work from other games and adapt them to your own. Games like Apex and Valorant were able to draw in a wider audience thanks to the roadmap Overwatch had laid down for them. Stealing is okay, actually, as long as you pair it with enough originality to offer the player something fresh.
I personally like when there's like more than one. As a game developer, I think it helps the industry move forward because the goal and the hope is that once you have people starting to kind of like create their own version of like a specific game that led the way in a way or opened the door, they always add their own little spin on it and we all learn from it.
By reshaping the idea of the shooter and what it could achieve, Overwatch propelled the industry forward.
You know, the world could always use more heroes.
That's something people tend to forget now, considering... Realistically, there is a good chance you clicked on this video just to leave a comment about how Overwatch is a trash game for little babies. That's a pretty common reaction. It's why a lot of people have trouble thinking of Overwatch as an influential game because, well, it wasn't terribly influential in its later years. I've already mentioned Overwatch never quite living up to the heights of its initial release, but it's pretty normal for a game to hit a high point and then drop off eventually. The drop-off for Overwatch, though, was incredibly steep. All the goodwill it had banked up seemed to dissipate in the blink of an eye, to the point where you might never know that it was made by the Golden State's most beloved game company. If you don't believe me, look up Activision Blizzard State of California. Of course, there had always been limitations to Overwatch's appeal. What made the game great for some people was exactly what made it frustrating for others. It already had a reputation as an easy game due to its no-aim heroes, and a common criticism of the game was what people perceived to be a too heavy emphasis on team play, meaning that even if you felt you were doing well, your team might still be outclassed and you'd lose. In more tactical games that emphasize individual skill, even if your team lets you down, you can still feasibly clutch a round or a fight by yourself by outskilling the opponent. But Overwatch just had a fundamentally different gameplay philosophy. Still, they might have gotten away with it, if not for...
Provide time for his teammates to get those support ultimates online. And now it's just a standoff. Who's going to crack first?
That's Birdwing's time to shine. He's going to get that grab on several words of follow-up there. It is not quite theirs. Fury's going to actually toss it in and actually, Fury eats Corey's grab, I'm sorry.
Got his trans, but he's got the shatter as well. Throws that out, doesn't find a target. Notion already had the trans going, so he doesn't care. He's keeping everybody topped up. Self-destruct thrown over the top, and it could find one. No, the shield is up for Janice. This is just still the standoff between both of these teams, but London with that sound barrier looking to end this fight. Shatter.
Such sustain. There's no one is dying anywhere on this. Birdwing's got another grab, the second into the fight. Gonna catch several again. Follow-up still not quite there. Transcendence able to keep him alive. And now finally someone dies, and it happens to be Prophet.
Ooh, the big wipeout!
Overwatch added the hero Brigitte to the game in March of 2018. Soon after, Goats was born. If you think that name is silly, well, blame the team that invented it. Goats was a team... If you think that name is silly, well, blame the team that invented it. Goats was a team composition that fundamentally altered the way the game was played. In Overwatch, hero picks and team compositions matter quite a bit when it comes to winning. Your team's heroes counter the opposing team's heroes, and everyone is of roughly equivalent skill, you're much more likely to see that victory screen. Goats was a team composition that featured 3 tanks and 3 supports, with Brigitte at the heart of it. What was it designed to beat? Well, everything.
He's barely tickling the Titans in terms of damage. Oh, the block was there. Aim on. Right down. They're going to need him up on the point here.
If there's anyone that knows Goats, it is this team. Stage 1 of the 2019 league season, everyone had caught on that Goats was the way to win in competitive Overwatch.
For well over a year, every pro and high-level competitive team was playing nothing but Goats. It required a high level of coordination to execute well, but it was a meta built around huge, spammy teamfights and coordinating ultimate usage, meaning that precise mechanical skill didn't matter that much. For many high-level players, especially those who specialized in aim-heavy damage characters, it was as good as a death knell for the classic FPS elements of the game.
We do see the Outlaws are going to pull out Dante's Tracer. This has been some of the things that Outlaws fans have been waiting for is a good Tracer player on Houston. It's Jake on the far. This combo's worked well for them before, but as soon as they see the defensive setup, they will just simply swap it away. Crucial time lost here for the Outlaws.
I do specifically remember, like, when they...
For the Outlaws setup, they will just on the far. This combo's worked well for them before, but as soon as they see the defensive setup, they will just simply swap it away. Crucial time lost here for the Outlaws.
I do specifically remember, like, when they allowed, like, the Goats comp to kind of dominate the game, and to do so for so long, I, like, stopped playing. Because I was like, well, the beauty of this game felt like it used to feel like for a long time, it was like 60% FPS, where you feel like your mechanical skill in that regard, like shooting, headshots, all of that stuff matter a lot. Whereas that just felt butchered. So like that satisfaction of playing an FPS game just kind of felt like it went out the window for a long time.
Overwatch eventually got rid of the Goats problem by introducing role lock, which mandated a 2-2-2 split of each role on any given team. But the damage had been done. People had already disagreed on whether Overwatch was a true FPS. After Goats, it seemed like the answer was a resounding no. And that answer stuck around even after Goats was gone. But realistically, only the more competitively minded Overwatch players were impacted by Goats. For the casual player base, those who didn't feel beholden to the meta, everything that made the game fun was still there. Then, at BlizzCon 2019,
oh, we are gonna have so much fun. It is gonna be so awesome.
Overwatch 2 was originally announced as a story-driven PvE version of the game that would exist side by side with the original Overwatch, which would remain PvP only. The PvP experience would be shared between both games, but only people with Overwatch 2 could play the PvE modes, which would feature ability trees and expansive story missions. It would be a big, ambitious step forward for the franchise, both in terms of gameplay and narrative. The final Overwatch 1 hero, Echo, was added to the game in April 2020. After that, other than sparse, event-themed cosmetics and recycled game modes, there was basically radio silence for 2.5 years, while the developers worked on getting Overwatch 2 out the door. The promise of a new game was exciting, especially at first, but abandoning the entire player base of an actual game may not have been the best idea. As development on Overwatch 2 continued, the original Overwatch entered a period of stagnation that it never fully recovered from, causing both its player count and its reputation to nosedive. So, competitive players were unhappy with an oppressive meta and overbearing developers, and casual players were unhappy with the lack of new content. Everyone was unhappy that new heroes, the lifeblood of Overwatch, were no longer being added to the game. These problems were amplified to the point where they overshadowed everything that made the game great. It was fascinating how quickly Overwatch, which had once seemed to herald a new era of games, became near universally seen as passé. Worst of all, it was branded with the scarlet letter of gaming. Cringe. In 2020, when Valorant came out, Riot's efforts to fend off the Overwatch comparisons felt especially frantic. Overwatch's reputation as a no-skill game chafed against the high-level tactical shooter Riot was trying to sell.
The CEO at the time, Nicolo, he tweeted, I think, a very famous tweet that was like, in Valorant, Valorant, abilities don't kill people, guns kill people. We didn't even approve that. We like it wasn't even like routed through us or anything like that. But I think he saw like the reactions and he was like, "Oh my God, they're gonna think we're Overwatch." And I'm like, "There's no way they think we're Overwatch. Just look at the guns."
Overwatch's design philosophy was one thing, but what made its place in games history really interesting was its business model, one that it stubbornly stuck to for years. From the start, Overwatch operated with what they called a pay once, play forever model. You would pay $40 US upfront, and from then until eternity, every update to the game would be yours, for no additional cost. Heroes would always be free. You could pay to buy loot boxes, which were basically in-game gacha machines, but if you played long enough, you could get pretty much every cosmetic you wanted. In 2016, this seemed pretty reasonable for the quality that you were getting. In fact, to me, it still seems pretty reasonable. Nowadays, you spend that kind of money in a game, all you're getting is a knife shaped like a fidget toy. But reasonable isn't synonymous with lucrative, and another shooter would soon begin to prove that. Fortnite, which was released in 2017, changed games forever. That's right, the start of the video wasn't just a fun misdirect, it was actually very clever foreshadowing. Fortnite may not have exactly upended the genre gameplay-wise, other than by introducing building as a core mechanic, but its business model was transformative for both Epic Games and the industry at large. In stark contrast to Overwatch, Fortnite was free to play and featured non-stop updates to keep its player base constantly engaged. This model is known as a live service game, where a game is monetized by providing a constant stream of new content, usually in place of an upfront cost. Fortnite also popularized the Battle Pass model, wherein every season, new rewards would be provided at different tiers of a Battle Pass, and you could progress through it by playing the game. There would be a free Battle Pass track with rewards obtainable by everyone, and a paid one that included more and usually better rewards. It wasn't the first game to have a Battle Pass, but it was by far the most successful. Fortnite's aggressive updates propelled its profit margins into the stratosphere, and soon enough, the rest of the games industry followed suit. It made sense as a way to get people into a game. If it's free, you're much more likely to give it a try, even if you don't end up sticking with it. And microtransactions tend to trick you into thinking you're spending less than you actually are. Today, that's the standard for online games. A free-to-play live service game with a battle pass. Fortnite's success had an immediate effect, and soon enough, pretty much every game was operating the same way. Though, it's worth noting that Fortnite's model came at a significant human cost. A Polygon report revealed that as of 2019, Epic Games employees were often working 70 to 100-hour weeks to keep up with the immense demand. Turns out an endless stream of content comes at the expense of real human people. Who knew? Oh, and they also got into a little bit of trouble with the US government over their microtransactions. There was a lot going on there. As the games industry rapidly changed around it, Overwatch remained exactly the same. Pay once, play forever. But in a matter of years, this model had become outdated, a relic of a different era of games, and new players simply weren't coming to Overwatch anymore. There wasn't really a compelling reason to, with other games in the space being free to play and getting new content all the time. And when measured against a $0 price tag, $40 does seem like kind of a lot. Eventually, Overwatch did go free to play, and they got rid of the loot box system, replacing it with a battle pass. But only once Overwatch 2 was released, 4 whole years after Fortnite's model took the industry by storm.
These kind of things, I think it missed the boat on, not because the people involved were stupid, but because the way that they had designed the game was based on the old learnings of the prior, I don't know, let's say 10 years between TF2 and Overwatch coming out. This is a games developer and a games design team that had been working on a big project that had fallen through. They rebuilt it to form Overwatch. They're relying on the lessons of the prior decade. I don't think that they were in a position to learn from Fortnite or these other games because they released before them. And I don't think that they were in a position to really be that game that took the step ahead and thought forwards, because they were still in a corporate culture and a learning scenario from the lessons of the past rather than trying to redefine how everything worked.
So, Overwatch 2 wasn't exactly offering anything new, and they weren't innovating on the free-to-play model or anything. But hey, at least all that awesome PvE stuff is now going to be available for everyone. What, did you forget about the whole PvE thing? Well, that's okay, because Blizzard kinda did too. After some underwhelming attempts at monetizing story missions, Blizzard announced that they were scrapping most of Overwatch 2's planned PvE content, and would instead focus solely on the game as a live service. Just like so much about Overwatch, the idea of buying a bunch of story missions as add-ons felt like a holdover from a different time in gaming. In the current climate, people wanted to pay for a cool gun that lights up, but they didn't want to pay for a narrative experience that they'd only play a few times before being done with it forever. The industry had moved on, and Overwatch had to move on with it. The move to free-to-play had new players flooding in to try Overwatch 2, but it wasn't a totally smooth launch. And not just because of the review bombers. See, Overwatch isn't like most other games, where you pick your character at the start of the game and play that same character the whole way through. Overwatch is built around swapping heroes, whether that be to counter something on the enemy team or because you just don't feel like your chosen hero is working. Obviously, this was because the game had been designed with the assumption that all heroes were always available to everyone. But Overwatch 2's launch saw new players only having access to a limited number of heroes, with the rest of the roster gated off behind progression goals. This is likely because its competitors were monetizing individual characters, but it just didn't work for Overwatch due to how the game was built around hero swaps. Basically, it was being reshaped into something that it was never supposed to be. So, Overwatch 2 gave that up in March 2024 and made all heroes free to everyone. For now, the game seems to have settled into something that works. Content updates happen every season, including new premium cosmetics called Mythic Skins, and in the spirit of Fortnite, the game has been doing a bunch of collaborations with other IPs. Last year, they made a song with K-pop girl group LE SSERAFIM, who performed at BlizzCon 2023 and got super cute in-game skins. They even went the extra mile, performed at BlizzCon 2023 and got super cute in-game skins. They even who performed at BlizzCon 2023 and got super cute in-game skins. They even went the extra mile by putting an authentic K-pop superfan in the game. Representation matters, you guys. If you were to show someone from 2016 what Overwatch looks like in 2024, it would probably seem pretty incomprehensible to them, and not just because the hero roster has since doubled. It's hard to believe the gaming industry has changed this much this quickly, to the point where even Blizzard, a developer known for sticking to their tried and true formulas, had to eventually reshape their game to keep up. Overwatch changed the shooter genre when it came out, and then, years later, the shooter genre changed it right back. When Overwatch 2 first came out, the prevailing criticism of it was that it was too similar to Overwatch 1. And in many ways, that's true. But if you were around when Overwatch first came out, the two games couldn't feel more different. Though it definitely has its audience, Overwatch 2 does feel like just another entry in a wave of shooters. The original Overwatch, on the other hand, was a revelation. I've talked to a lot of people who played Overwatch on launch, and the thing everyone agrees on is that it brought all kinds of people together. It didn't matter if you came from Counter-Strike or TF2 or League of Legends or World of Warcraft, or if you'd never played an online game at all. There are a myriad of reasons why Overwatch was so successful when it launched, and we've covered quite a few of them. But the big one is that it was fun. It was fun to log on and see that all your friends were also playing. It was fun to be part of a game that felt fresh and exciting. It was fun to queue into a game and run 6 Winstons. And for a time, everyone was playing Overwatch. No other game has felt quite like that since then. Other developers have spent years trying to recreate that feeling, but none have succeeded. If you were there in 2016, whether you've stuck with the game for 8 years or you dropped it after a few weeks, you probably still remember that era.
It actually brought a lot of communities together at once, and it was a really exciting time in gaming. I really look fondly, looking back on the beginning of Overwatch.
It's kind of a surreal feeling, growing up with the game. I was 15 when I started playing Overwatch in high school, and now I'm 23. So it just kind of feels like a part of my life now. I do try to have a life outside of gaming, so I'm not too chronically online, but it is interesting to see how much the game has grown, and I'm very grateful to still love the game.
I love Mercy.
When I started making this video, I wasn't sure what conclusions I'd come to. I just had a gut feeling that Overwatch was an important moment in gaming history. And now that I've gone through this whole process, I know for sure that that's true. And I also know that Overwatch couldn't have existed the same way in any other time. That's also why no other game could ever truly follow it, including its future self. It came right in time to be the triumphant culmination of one era of games, but was slightly too early to be at the forefront of another. Eventually, it got caught in the middle and had to change if it wanted to keep up. It's easy to look at where Overwatch ended up and ask, this is the game that inspired all those multi-million-dollar flops? And in the face of all its various missteps, it's easy to forget just how big of a phenomenon it once was. Nowadays, most people think of Overwatch as a cautionary tale of what happens when a developer makes one wrong decision too many and tanks what was once the biggest game in the world. But maybe it was always going to be Overwatch's fate to burn bright and then fizzle out because of when it came out and who it was made by. Overwatch never again reached the heights that it hit in 2016, and it's likely that it never will, but it left us with a completely altered gaming landscape and a whole new way of thinking about shooters. You can say that's untrue, but today, whenever you see a brand new hero shooter, what's the first thing you think of? Hey, thank you so much for watching this video essay. I hope you learned something new. I know I did. Before you go, there's one more thing I want to tell you. If you have any burning questions or comments, whether you love Overwatch, have somehow never heard of it before, or really do think it's a trash game for little babies, leave them here, and we'll select a few of them to respond to in a follow-up.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the first ever commentary gameplay breakdown type of video that we're doing on this channel, where we're just going to look at my rough Abrams gameplay and just show you some of the things that I like to do during a match in order to try and win these games on Abrams. This is a video that's meant to go together with the build video that I posted yesterday, just to give you an example of how to play these games out, what to do from a practical while you see what happens. An edge of 6,000 souls over your opponents. Don't quote me on that. Here is because if you look at our lanes, they're all pushed in except for blue. So getting a walker, it was going to be very unlikely. We'd have to push out all the lanes and then push up on the walker, and by that time they would have already respawned. But now, with the old Kelvin bubble, we can just get boss for free after a kill. But even with the new back, and here you can see that the pocket went for full gun build, which is why he's just doing so much damage right now. He went for kinetic dash super early on the
follow-up article on the Team Liquid website. If you liked...
Alright, so today's video, we're watching a Gold 4 support on PS5, playing in Moira and Mercy Knight. Compass. I like the early damage orbs. You do one more damage orb, nice. Now you can make a decision after that on how you're going to heal. Healing your team. Damage orb again. Good solid damage orbs to start. Gives you your healing resource. So far, so good. Nice job. That's a clean start. Nice shot there. Like, everything was clean. Why did that BAP lamp? I don't question that sometimes. Maybe they hit the wrong button, right? So far, everything's fine. Team's holding up close, like, in gold. This is normal. This part, I try not to do this, like the stand still thing. That's how the Junkrat sneaks up the left side door and then one-shot you because you're just standing there. So a little bit less that static gameplay of just sitting there. You know what I'm saying? So, heal your queen. The queen was really low. That's on you. Okay, so this is common in every game, just less tunnel vision. Like I could see that your queen was very low. You ignored that to do a little bit of damage. By the time you try to catch up on heals with your queen, who's probably asking you for heals, you end up misplaying it a little bit, and now Junkrat gets 3. Maybe you keep your queen alive there. Your queen's at 70% ult charge. Keeping your queen alive there is probably going to be the ult charge for your ultimate. Maybe the Junkrat gets your Hanzo, but now you have a 4v5 with your ultimate and an ult advantage. You see where like little plays like this can lead to much. Like, it can lead to a one-team fight that you wouldn't even realize you could win. I mean, you have opportunity there.